Are two of the biggest hits in rock and roll history ripped off from a small Australian band?
Did Pink Floyd really intend for Dark Side of the Moon to sync up with The Wizard of Oz?
Hey everybody, this is Big Randy with the Smarts Project. I've provided security and transportation for some of the biggest names in the music industry.
I'm John. I've been a musician for over 20 years, playing everything from metal and punk to bluegrass and country.
We're bringing you a podcast about some of the weirdest myths and legends that the music industry has to offer. This is Tall Tales and Music Mythology.
Hey everybody, this is Big Randy with the Smarts Project. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for taking time to listen to us. And with me on the ones and twos is a sweet co-host of mine, Mr. Jonathan Glove.
Hello, everybody.
So on the Smarts Project update, I am getting ready to set off on the road almost as soon as we get done recording this today. Setting up shop in Virginia Beach later on this week. Driving there with the love of my life, the hottest piece of ass to ever leave the state of Rhode Island, the Jen. Say hello, Jen.
Hi, everybody.
God, man, she talks all the damn time. Jeez, hard to shut her up. Anyway, I don't have anything in the line of music news today because Jen and
not fair.
No, well, hey, look, man, she came in Friday. That's all I'm trying to do is spend time around her.
Yeah.
So you got anything before we get started, brother?
No, nothing.
So my story today is about two songs. I was actually hipped up on this by a buddy of mine I went to school with.
Oh, nice.
And he was like, hey, man, you ever hear this? And I ain't never heard the two songs I'm getting ready to tell you about. Well, I mean, you know about them now.
Right.
But the two songs that we're talking about, obviously I know them, but the other band, I never heard of the band.
No, I've never heard of them either.
Songs, none of that. So in August of 1988, a monster album was released that would forever change the face of American rock and forced every struggling rock band to either bring their A game or go back home and keep playing guitar in your mama's basement as another bitter rock and roll star cut short before the fame. One of the songs on the album was Sweet Child of Mine. Duff McKagan said in an interview that this song was unique in a lot of ways. It was written in like 5 minutes, but it was sincere and sweet, he said. Lead in, the guitar that Slash provides at the beginning was more or less a joke, as was playfully making riffs between takes in the recording studio.
Yeah, he would play it as like a warm-up exercise. And Axl liked it enough. He's like, make a song out of that.
Now, see, that's what I heard originally, but as I'm reading about it, it wasn't him. Axl wasn't even in the room.
Wasn't Axl? Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, it could be either one of those, but from what I read, because I originally thought what you said.
Yeah.
But Slash has been quoted as having an initial disdain for the song due to its roots as simply a string skipping exercise, and it was a joke at the time. But during a jam session at the band's house in Sunset Strip, drummer Steven Adler and Slash were warming up, and Slash began to play a circus melody while making faces at Adler. So really, they were just kind of putzing around.
Right.
So, and I guess it happens a lot. I've never been cursed with any kind of talent, so I can't really tell you about that. But rhythm guitarist Izzy Stradlin asked Slash to play it again. Stradlin came up with some chords. Duff McKagan created a bass line, and Adler planned the beat. In his autobiography, Slash said, quote, "Within an hour, my exercise had become something else," unquote. Meanwhile...
That's interesting that he made that as a string skipping exercise. It makes sense, because you do have to skip over several strings.
Physically skipping over. So it's like every other string kind of sort of.
So it starts off on... The first note's on the D string, and then the second note is the B. So you skip over the G to go to the B string.
See, what's so funny is, man, to me...
Or maybe it's the A.
To me, that guy is just a goddamn legend, you know, and he's the first one to say, I ain't no real guitar player. I don't even know music theory or any
He
of
talks
that
about that all the time, about how he just knows enough theory to get by.
To like a working knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, I've watched him play with B.B. King on stage.
Jeff Beck.
Yeah, the greatest guitarist, you know, and he's like, nah, I'm all right. You know, it reminds me of that story that we did, I was telling you about Eric Clapton with the Unplugged. Yeah. And he didn't even think it was good enough to release, and it was like the highest rated album ever from Unplugged.
Well, he talks about that all the time. Slash does with, trying to think what things I've heard him say in regards to that. But I mean, you covered it.
Yeah. He's like, maybe it's just a humble
He knows
thing.
how much that he doesn't know.
Right.
As we talk
at the Buddha
about
stage of guitar playing. Yeah. But meanwhile, lead singer Axl Rose was listening to the musicians upstairs in his room and was inspired to write lyrics, which became complete by the following afternoon. He based it on his girlfriend, Erin Everly, which I knew that, and declared that Lynyrd Skynyrd served as an inspiration to, quote, to make sure that we got the heartfelt feeling, unquote. Huh. Never heard of that.
Yeah, and I guess I can kind of see a little bit of Lynyrd Skynyrd influence in that song, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, if you really listen to like, Fred Rogers, you could probably listen to some Lynyrd Skynyrd influence in there somewhere, you know. Somewhere in the neighborhood, there's some Lynyrd Skynyrd influence, you know. When the band recorded demos with producer Spencer Proffer, he suggested adding a breakdown at the song's end. The musicians agreed, but were not sure what to do. Listening to the demo on the loop, Rose started saying to himself, where do we go? Where do we go now? And Spencer lost his shit and suggested that he sing that. So that's how come that he came up with it.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
That one I had actually heard before, but it's kind of nice that whenever you hear these stories, like back in the 80s and 90s, 20, 30 years later, it's like, oh, no shit, what I heard was true. Wow.
Right.
This has been the accepted narrative ever since the release of the song in 1988. A cult following had formed behind not only the song, but the band as well. Slash now is a very respected guitarist. Izzy Stradlin has had moderate success as a solo artist. Duff McKagan founded and owns a wealth management company named Meridian Rock.
And owns a lot of stock in Starbucks.
Oh, no shit. Steven Adler had problems with chemical dependency and multiple appearances on cheesy reality shows. Yep. And Axl, well, after taking 12 years to make a massively substandard Chinese democracy, going through girlfriends like a fat man goes through breadsticks at Olive Garden, and rarely coming out in public due to his inability to associate with normal people, Axl made a very successful and respectful tour with AC/DC after a temporary relief pitcher for Brian Johnson during his issues with a hearing loss.
Right,
Jen, are you proud of me? I made a sports reference. A little bit. Hopefully turning not only his public perception. Yeah, right. Hopefully turning not only his public perception of him, but also his actual attitude towards mere mortals such as you and I. But in 2015, an Australian music site named Max released information they got directly from an interview with a gentleman by the name of James Rain. Who is James Rain, you ask? James is the lead singer of a band that broke up in 1986 called Australian Crawl. In 1981, they released an album called Sirocco. If you're a band from Australia, it's kind of a cool name because it means hot wind, often dusty or rainy, blowing from North Africa across the Mediterranean to Southern Europe. But if you're in a country like the United States, it sounds like a model of Volkswagen popular in the 1990s. It is not inconceivable that there are similarities between the two songs, right. James told the Daily Mail. It's also not inconceivable that when they came out, they were quite open in interviews that they liked a lot of Australian bands. It's also not inconceivable that they wouldn't have been aware of, they wouldn't have been aware of certain Australian songs. God forbid that I had an active publishing company and they investigated the possibility.
Wait, what now?
Yeah. Well, listen to the way that he's saying it. It's not inconceivable.
Well, no, I get all that.
Oh, but the last one?
The publishing company part.
Let's see.
The active publishing company or whatever.
God forbid I had an active publishing company and they investigated the possibility. So in other words,
right, but
I wish my publishing company would have investigated.
So they didn't investigate it, is what he's saying. Okay.
Right.
The wording was strange on his part.
I think that he needs to, as I get on, you'll see why, but he's afraid to really put his foot in the ring.
Okay.
Which, if you're going up against GNR,
right.
like there,
Yeah, that's it.
But Rain, one thing that is inconceivable would be taking Slash and company to court. He quote, "I'm not about to take on the might of the Guns N' Roses lawyer," he said.
Yeah, probably not a good idea.
Right.
Or Guns N' Roses fleet of lawyers on retainer, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hell, man, I bet they're paying more on retainers in 1 month than I make an entire year.
Oh, yeah, I
easily.
guarantee it. Yeah.
The controversy,
you have to at that level of stardom, really.
The controversy got all the way to former Guns N' Roses bassist Duff McKagan. Quote, "It's pretty stunning," he told Radio.com, commenting on a video comparing the two songs, "but we didn't steal it from him. I never heard that song until a couple of days ago," he swore in an interview from 2015. All this stuff I'm telling you was based from information that Max got, this news, this music media thing that they got in 2015.
Okay.
And I'm just hearing about it now.
Right.
But he says, "I've never heard that song until a couple of days ago." He swore in an interview from 2015. He had his hand on his heart, which, that obviously he's telling the truth. But between 1980 and 1985, Australian Crawl released 4 studio full lengths and gained popularity in their homeland before disbanding. They never made the commercial impact in the United States that they desired.
Yeah, I'd never heard of them.
I mean, until just like a few days ago.
Yeah.
They are enshrined in the Australian Recording Industry Association Hall of Fame.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, like they're that big a deal there, but...
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Billboard reached out to representatives for comment, and I haven't heard of any corporate response to this date, and that was from Guns N' Roses and from the publishing company. Neither one of them has said.
Gotcha.
Although arguably the biggest band in question, apparently the stories of musicians ripping off riffs from other musicians knows no bounds or genre barriers.
Yep. Led Zeppelin gets accused of that a lot, and some of it's very glaring.
Oh, yeah, with the Taurus thing?
Yeah, well, especially like various blues artists. I mean, like almost ripping entire songs off wholesale.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
There is also a claim that none other than Nirvana stole the opening riff from Smells Like Teen Spirit from another song originally written, recorded, and released by Australian Crawl.
That I had not heard.
I didn't think he did.
Huh.
The opening riff from both sound identical in chord structure and only different in effects from the Crawl's song, Daughter of the Northern Coast.
Oh, so this is the song we were talking about earlier. Okay.
Now, many times people such as myself who are not familiar with the burden of talent can easily confuse these type of accusations simply because we don't know music theory, chord progression, and other big words that I don't understand in music. So, to cover my proverbial ass, I have asked none other than the world-famous music critic Jonathan Glove to review the 2 recordings of the songs in question for the Guns N' Roses story. So we're going to take a little break. John's going to listen to it because I just dropped it on him right now. We're going to cut all this dead time out in post, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it. So we'll see you in just a second.
All right. All right, so just got a chance to listen to those songs there, and I definitely hear some similarities. The Nirvana one I think is more of a stretch, just because it similar strumming pattern, almost the exact same strumming pattern, but
Dumb people talk. Remember?
Okay, the way that he is strumming his guitar.
No, I understand, but you were getting ready to get us some technical shit. I know you, man. You get that look on your face, like you all glazed over, coming out with your 78-cent words.
So the strumming pattern's pretty similar, and that drum intro is real
almost
similar.
Nailed, yeah.
But it's in a different key, and it's like I was saying, it's almost like that riff in reverse.
Right, the slide. I didn't even notice that until you said that, but the slide on Nirvana is up, and on the
Australian Crawl.
Yeah, Australian Crawl, it goes down.
Right.
Now, is it safe to say that even if the slide was going up like Nirvana's, that it would still be different?
Oh yeah, because it's in a completely different key.
Right, but completely different. Still the.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like with the intervals. Would use the
timing and
term.
all that.
The strumming pattern is definitely the same, or damn similar,
right?
At least. The chord progression is, I think, different enough. And like we were talking about, and you had mentioned this in a previous episode once before too. I do think that More Than a Feeling's chord progression is closer to Smells Like Teen Spirit than that song is.
Which is absolutely fascinating to me because not only are you right, I have absolutely zero memory of talking about that.
It was the episode where we talked about, your story was if Kurt Cobain wrote music for Ren and Stimpy or not.
Oh, no shit. You know, I'm smart sometimes. You know, I sent you that video that one time of if they played Teen Spirit in major chords.
Yeah.
And it sounded like something like Len would play, or,
right,
you know,
right,
it was
right.
like real upbeat, you know,
Right.
like a real motivational.
And that's kind of like the similarities between Smells Like Teen Spirit and More Than a Feeling, because Smells Like Teen Spirit is obviously in a minor key. It's
Right.
F minor, if I'm not mistaken, and More Than a Feeling is in G major. So it's kind of the same thing there. It's like if you transpose the chords into a major key and moved it up a whole step as well from F to G. So yeah, interesting.
But anyway, I got fascinated by that. For anybody that wants to look up the songs, I'm almost positive you're familiar with Guns N' Roses and Nirvana, so I'm just going to take that as a gimme. But the band from Australia is Australian Crawl.
Oh, and I didn't talk about that, the GNR one, the similarities between those two. So
the one we started off with.
I know, right?
Oh shit, yeah. Let's go ahead and do that shit we were talking about doing. Yeah.
I definitely will say that one is way closer to Sweet Child of Mine than the other one is to Smells Like Teen Spirit. I mean, very similar chord progression.
Right.
Very, very, very similar. Vocal melody is pretty close as well. The solo or like some of the lead guitar parts are basically just a simplified version of what Slash plays. And I think the guy, if I'm not mistaken, is playing with the slide.
No kidding.
Too, which Slash uses slide occasionally, just not in Sweet Child of Mine. He uses one in Welcome to the Jungle.
Right.
Like that really high-pitched squeaky part right at the beginning of the bridge is
the
him,
echoey.
Yeah, it's him sliding all the way up near the pickups and back down. But I used to have a lot of fun with that at band practice, with annoying people with super high-pitched slide squeals.
Doing the bird and all that stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, that one I think is definitely closer. Now, the interesting thing about that one was in the YouTube comments section of that song, Unpublished Critics, or whatever the hell it was called, the lead guitarist of the band, Australian Crawl, Simon Binks is his name, which I had no clue who he was before I saw him show up. He actually shows up in the comments section and straight up says, "Nah, I don't think GNR stole this from us."
Shut your face.
Yeah.
Now, you don't think it was a troll?
No, it's really the dude. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's verified on YouTube even. Hang on. No, it doesn't say verified or anything like that. But it's got him in the profile picture.
Okay, now let me ask you. Now, I'm not talking shit. I'm truly asking this. Does this guy, like I know on Twitter, most of the time Twitter will contact you to get that verification thing. Is YouTube like that? Like, does this guy rate a verification?
Doesn't look like it is. I wasn't sure if YouTube had that capability or that function or not.
Right.
But
you think it's legit though?
Yeah, I really do. Just by going through several of his comments, he comments on that video several times.
I'll be damned.
And actually talks with a lot of people on it too.
You know what's interesting is that's my story. I probably should have done that.
No.
You know, because I'm a research hound.
I literally just happened upon it because normally I do not read YouTube comments because that is where hope and human dignity go to die in the gutter. I mean, it's as bad as like a Facebook public article comment section. I mean,
you know, one thing
terrible.
I wish you would do, man. I just wish you would come out and say what's on your mind. Don't hold that shit in.
But I thought this was pretty interesting that he actually, showed up.
It's kind of funny, but James Rain didn't say anything about it. Of course, he might have already put his dick on the table anyway by saying this stuff. I mean, I know he's kind of measuring what he's saying anyway.
Right. Well, and the comments that Simon Binks left are from 2 years ago. So, like, he commented on this a while ago. Yeah, it is very interesting. Yeah, I thought that was cool.
That's cool. You know, it's funny that sometimes I hear these stories and I look at this stuff and to me, it's like a big deal, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to make his ass pucker, and then I make you listen to it and you're like, oh yeah, that's
well, no, that first one, man, the GNR one, definitely, I could see that. I could
Right.
see that one. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities with that one.
But with the second one, if you
mm-mm.
change the slide going up and instead of down and just tuned it back to the same chords that Nirvana's using, it's going to be
It would
pretty
be
much
more
the same.
similar. Yeah, it'd be more similar than I
So
guess,
really,
but
it's easy to say that they just put a little twist on it and then made it their own.
I guess.
I mean, not that they did that, but that's reasonable to say that could have happened.
Yeah, it could have.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's not like Kurt Cobain don't know a whole lot about music.
No.
That brother was smart.
Absolutely.
with music.
He was a huge music nerd.
Yeah, he was like a white Questlove.
Yeah, he loved to learn about, obscure music and
Sure.
bands and stuff like that. But I see that being really antithetical to a lot of his personal ethos. You know what I'm saying about like do it yourself?
Yeah, because he
and
was
shit like
always
that.
that's true. Because he was always like, we're going to play this song by these people right here.
Right.
Yeah, even on Unplugged, he was doing that.
Right.
Meat Puppets and whatnot.
And even though the band's music didn't really fit in with punk per se,
Right.
Kurt Cobain himself really, if you look at the way he lived and his work ethic and everything like that, was punk as fuck. I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I have a hard time believing he would have purposely stolen any of that.
Unfortunately, I don't know anybody on the Foo Fighters, and I never met Kurt Cobain, so
Right.
And even if I did, he's gonna be tough to get a hold of these days. I ain't got that kind of juice.
And when it comes to stuff like this, or like when comedians are accused of stealing jokes,
Sure.
there's always a question of parallel construction, like
Right.
or parallel thinking. Like, did two people happen to think of something similar at the same time? And none of these chord progressions are super complicated, so that kind of lends itself to maybe it just happened that way. Some of the cases though, like Led Zeppelin,
Right.
that's a little different,
Yeah.
because that was much more complex.
Well, see,
Some of those cases,
even after you told me what you thought about the Nirvana one, was it Daughters from the Northern Shore?
Yeah, Daughters from the
Even
Northern
after you
Coast.
said that, the thing, I was thinking the same thing, parallel thinking. However, whenever you're talking about the time of the first drum to the time of the first drum,
right?
it's roughly the same.
Yeah, that is true.
And the lead-in drum is roughly the same, and the chord progression is roughly the same, and the timing is roughly the same.
I'd say the chord progression is pretty different, but
but
again,
really
it's in a different key too.
Well, it's in a different key, but and the slide is different because Nirvana slides up and this one slides down.
Right.
But to me, there was just so many similarities there.
Yeah, but
me
you're talking-
saying this without any talent and not knowing how to play.
You're also talking, just a four chord progression, and just two measures as an intro. I mean, that's pretty common.
Well, that's true too. Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
yeah. See, this is why I come to you with this shit. Yeah. You want to talk about Slurpees or steak? I'm your guy.
So, I mean, is it possible? Yeah, absolutely, it's possible. Is it likely? I say no.
Yeah.
Personally, that's my.
Especially along with what the guitar player from the band, if he's going on YouTube and
Right.
going, well, I don't think that he stole it.
Right,
Why
right.
this guy? It would behoove this guy to say, yeah, they jacked it from us, and he's not doing it.
No,
Unless he really hates James Rain and he's trying to, put his dick in the dirt or something.
Well, and I guess the other thing with Sweet Child of Mine too is the chord progression is the same. Or I didn't actually sit down with the guitar and bang that one out just to double check that. I did that with Daughters of the Northern Coast, obviously.
By the way, he's not saying that in passing. He can actually do that. It makes me sick.
But yeah, I did go grab my guitar just to try to figure them out.
Well, I don't know. Hang on, fat ass. Let me get my guitar. Let me just whip this sucker out, and I'll play all these songs, especially the ones I never heard of before. You might give me like 35 seconds. I'll get it.
But oh shit, what was I gonna say? The lead part, the main lead riff from Sweet Child of Mine really wasn't in Unpublished Critics. The
Right.
chord progression is, and like I said, those solos are pretty damn similar too.
Sure.
But I think that's the biggest differentiation there is that lead riff really is what makes Sweet Child of Mine. In my opinion, that opening riff there, and I guess I don't know. That's maybe enough to really give it a big enough difference. But I don't.
Sure,
I don't know.
sure.
It's Just my opinion. The chord progression though is very similar. At least without me actually trying to play it and figure out if it is exactly the same chords.
Right.
It sure sounds like.
I just had like a thought.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I have these ideas about the way that I would describe something in music and the way that you would describe in music. And this reminds me of the subreddit of No Stupid Questions, I think it is.
Yeah.
And then you got some schmuck that like me that'll come along and I like the color red. What can I eat that's red? And then you got some fucking scientist that comes in from MIT. Well, in the red spectrum there is everything from this to that and blah, and he's breaking down all these buck and a half words and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, you're from MIT. Yeah. So, all right. Well, if you ain't got enough, we're gonna take a break and we're gonna come right back. And John's gonna lay it down.
All right.
Hey friends, this is Mary from the Mary Movement Podcast. We tell true stories that will inspire, encourage, and warm your heart. So join the movement at themarymovement.com.
All right, and we're back. And during the break there, since I'd forgotten to listen to the other Australian crawl song again, I listened to it earlier in the week, but I didn't listen to it just now. I did go through the chord progression, and that one is way more similar because it's literally the same intervals, just a whole step higher. So the Australian crawl song goes from C, B to B flat to F, and Sweet Child of Mine goes from D to C to G.
Mansplain.
On
we're not all talented.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying it's very similar.
You're going into a very dark place, though.
Hey, anyone who does understand what I'm talking about will appreciate it.
I'm sure. Okay, yeah. Touche.
Yeah, almost the exact same chord progression, and that one's a lot closer. And again, the aside from the lead part at the beginning, those solos are very similar.
Now,
too.
do you think it's more similar? Let's see. You're talking about the Guns N' Roses one, right? Okay.
At the same time, it's still a very common chord progression. So,
yeah.
I mean, I could see it still being parallel construction, maybe. I don't know, man.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. On the other one, talking about the Nirvana song, do you think there's more similarities in that or in Boston More Than a Feeling?
Okay, I would say there's more similarities in the Boston song
your face.
Than there is to in the chord progression. Let me put it that way, in the chord progression. Not the overall song.
Right.
Not the overall song, but just that chorus. The chorus chord progression to More Than a Feeling, I would say is closer to Smells Like Teen Spirit than Daughters of the Northern Coast.
Unbelievable.
Because it's real similar. Yeah. But whatever.
It's funny because, I'm not trying to scoop up all your time here, but, whenever I first started researching the story, my dumb ass and severe lack of talent, I'm like, these son of a bitches, they stole, this is solid stuff. That's a felony. And some, they stole that shit, but then when, as we're recording this and, you're talking about the Boston More Than a Feeling, on the Nirvana thing. And, then this other one from Australian Crawl.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similar songs and I have a hard time wrapping my mind around the fact that somebody like Kurt Cobain, which is obviously he was very well in tune with music structure and
absolutely.
I think that he would know what comes from what song, his knowledge bank of songs and the individual parts of those songs is way wider than mine.
Right.
So for him to go, oh, well, I'm just going to cherry pick, this from this song and this. I just don't see that.
No, definitely not. And I've talked about this before. I love Nirvana.
Sure.
Obviously, I have since I was in elementary school. And
screw you, kid. Yeah.
And Kurt Cobain even said this himself on more than one occasion. He was not a very good guitarist.
Right.
He really wasn't. I don't know how much music theory knowledge he had, but I'm guessing not a ton.
Yeah, but I think that also, not to cut you off, but I think that's one of those things that, like, you'll go, I'm okay in guitar. I'm okay in this. But he's got, like, the world's highest score in some freaking video game that you play a real guitar. What is it? Music?
Well, Rocksmith.
Yeah.
I've got several songs.
Okay.
On PS4.
I say a simple fact that I can back up with like, here, look at this. And you really do have the world's highest score in this. And he'll go, it's only this one song on this one level and blah, 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 blah. Okay, that does not make me wrong. You're just breaking out details that I did not cover. So I think he's a lot like that,
No, I honestly can say I don't think Kurt Cobain was a very good guitarist. Like, he was very simple.
Oh, sure, and I'm sure you got,
But he was a great songwriter, and there's a big difference. So you can be a good songwriter and not be a, very technically skilled
and
guitarist.
I bet you got 100 swinging dicks out there like Slash that'll go, yeah, Jonathan Gluff, not so much. Of course there's somebody out there that's going to look at your shit and go, hey, he's okay.
Right, right.
But, I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, I don't even qualify to be your friend.
Whatever. But, I don't know. One other thing I will say, in defense of Sweet Child of Mine, is that those three chords, in their case D, C, and G, are probably the three most common chords in all of music.
Right.
Period.
Right. And I think that the chords that you could put together that actually sound good are very limited, because I think the vast majority of combinations that you put together are going to sound like ass.
Right, exactly. Because I could go into a little bit more in depth than we need to. Yeah, I won't. But I would argue that G, C, and D are literally the three most common chords in all of rock music. Period. Sure. Jesus. The song. Oh shit, which one is it? Blitzkrieg Bop by Ramones. It's just G, C, and D is all it is. The whole song.
Yeah, but I don't know if you would consider them a real deep music.
Oh no, absolutely not. They were just a pop band, more than anything. Great good music. But again, that's the case where there's a difference between songwriting skill and raw musical talent.
Right.
You don't have to be, the flashiest guitarist in the world to write a good song.
Wait, you just called them a pop band.
Yeah, I would definitely consider them a pop band.
You don't think they're a punk band?
No.
The Ramones. We're talking about the same guys, right?
Exactly.
Tall guy, really screwed up nose?
Yeah, we're talking about the Ramones.
Joey Ramone.
I know they get,
I hope for the sake of your health, I hope that Penn Jillette doesn't listen to this podcast. Because I believe he has the resources to track you down.
And that's not an insult. I'm talking like literally when I say pop in this case, I mean in the truest. It's not bubblegum pop like Britney Spears or some shit like that. Like
but
Beach Boys
in that
pop,
day,
like Beach Boys and well even early Beatles. Really, they were a pop band. I mean,
at that time they was in that category. Mm-hmm. Now they're not. Mm-hmm. They're considered punk now, I guess, right?
Who, the Ramones?
Yeah.
I mean, I hear a lot of people call them punk, and I mean, some songs more than others make sense as that, but overall, I mean, I don't know. I've never really considered them a punk band, even though they get lumped in with that scene.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
So,
and then who's the other ones? The guy that killed his girlfriend?
Sex Pistols?
Yeah. Now, is that punk?
I mean,
we're going to get hate mail.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't care. Obviously,
I've said plenty of things. Jonathan I've
said plenty of things. I'm sure that could give me lots of hate mail on here. But with the Sex Pistols, the issue I have with them is, as far as being a quote unquote punk band, is that they were really manufactured. They're almost like a boy band. They had a manager. I should know the guy's name. Ian McLaren or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Who basically put them together. It's like, oh, hey, I see all these guys who are hanging out at these, punk clubs and stuff like that. Oh, let's start a band and capitalize on, this popularity of punk.
So he was the original, scene. Like the fat guy that started like NSYNC.
Yeah, exactly. So in many ways, the Sex Pistols were more or less a boy band, just with more of an attitude, pseudo
chemical dependencies.
Yeah, no doubt.
Unbelievable.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can address that. Of course, it's host, HOSTS, at T2M2.org, and that's Dear John.
Bring it on. I welcome your hate. It sustains me.
I will bathe in it.
But yeah, so that's
all right. Well, what you got on your side of the story?
So as I mentioned, I'm talking about Dark Side of the Moon, or as the sinking of Dark Side of the Moon and the Wizard of Oz is often called Dark Side of the Rainbow.
Damn it.
Yeah, and I feel like so the Pink Floyd. I feel like many people can probably claim this as well as myself, but I first got into Pink Floyd in college.
There were teacups. Yeah.
Feel free to draw your own inferences there about what that implies. But so
I got it. Yeah, because it's not a TV reference.
But I started listening to them in college. I went through a big classic rock phase in early college. Listened to a lot of Zeppelin, Leonard Skinner, Pink Floyd, everything like that. And actually, so I was in a fraternity in college. I don't really claim that too often because
was it because of the baby sacrifice? Or?
It was more just being curious. I'm like, fraternity. It's a secret organization. I want to learn about.
Sure,
that. I want to go to there, and so I did join. Well, and plus, like everybody in my dorm hall, like my roommate, 2 guys across the hall from me, another guy further down the hall, another guy down the hall. Like there was like 6 or 7 of us within 5 rooms of each other who all joined the same fraternity at the same time. But one of the hazing rituals they put us through was sit us in a dark room with a ski mask over our head and blaring Pink Floyd on repeat.
Oh, geez.
So one day it was The Wall, and then another day it was Dark Side of the Moon.
Wow.
And the second one, I was so sleep deprived by that point because we'd been living in the house for like a week.
Right.
And
how long did you have to listen to it for?
Oh, God, hours.
Shut your
hours.
face.
I bet you the whole album probably played at least 7 or 8 times.
What?
And have you ever heard Dark Side of the Moon?
Of course.
Okay. I can't remember which song it is. The music stops, and then there's all the alarm or all the grandfather clocks going off at the same time. Dude, when you almost fall asleep right before that, and then you wake up to blaring clocks like that.
Makes your butt pucker.
Oh man, that is a strange, disorienting wake up call. But so coincidentally, or maybe not so much, college is also where I first heard this rumor. But after hearing it, though, it seemed like I was the last person of all my friends to find out about this.
Right. They're looking at you like your hair's on fire.
Yeah. So I was kind of surprised that you hadn't heard of this either. Because, like, my then girlfriend's dad.
No, I didn't travel in drug culture. No.
So
I kid. It was a much higher drug culture. My drug culture had forklifts.
So my then girlfriend's dad had heard of it. One of my best friends and occasional bandmates from high school had heard of it. I saw it talked about, in magazines and everything like that. Just all over the place. So it was just funny that, I heard of it and then I start seeing it pop up everywhere.
Right.
But so for those who are unfamiliar with this rumor here, some details about areas that sync up are, first of all, the album cover, okay, is that prism and it shows light coming through it and then, all the colors going the other way. So, a lot of people draw the inference there that symbolizes the movie's transition from black and white to color.
Ooh.
So that's one thing. The tornado at the beginning of the movie seems to align with all the people screaming in The Great Gig in the Sky. What are some other ones? There's a part where the scarecrow's dancing, and part of the song "Brain Damage" lines up with that. I forget. The song "Us and Them," when he says "black and blue," is supposedly right when the wizard shows up and the smoke turns from black to blue in synchronization with it as well, supposedly. So, again, I'd heard this for quite a while, but tried to find out where exactly this rumor started from. So obviously it's going to be next to impossible to tell this since this started well before interwebs was really a big thing. Sure. But I was able to find some concrete info to a degree. And like my story from 2 weeks ago, Indiana surprisingly plays a role in solidifying this rumor into our collective knowledge. Surprisingly.
You just making shit up now.
I know, right? I'll get to that in a
First
second.
First hip-hop, now Pink Floyd.
All right. I'll get to that in a second. But so Dark Side of the Moon was first released on March 1st, 1973. And even though it's commonly the first album that many people listen to, and I was that way as well, and arguably it's probably their best known album, it was actually their 8th studio album. So a lot of people don't realize how prolific the band was before that. A large part of the album centered around mental illness, largely reflecting on the rapidly deteriorating mental health of founder and original primary contributor Syd Barrett.
Wow, I didn't know that.
His possible schizophrenia, as well as his well-documented heavy usage of LSD and other psychedelic drugs throughout his tenure with the band, had rendered him pretty much unable to continue with the band or even function in day-to-day life.
What?
Honestly, yeah, the guy was just a mess after a couple of years with the band. Because I think, I forget when the band started. It was in the 60s. I want to say like 65, 66. I think it was around the time that Piper at the Gates of Dawn, their first album, came out.
We did cover that whenever we were talking about the name thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, he was with the band for less than 10 years, I think, and just... Yeah, unfortunately.
So what is that?
Unraveled.
I mean, not to take it off course, but I mean, what does that mean whenever you can't function day to day because of that shit? Are you bedfast?
No, he couldn't hold down a job.
Sure.
Or anything like that. He ended up living out in the country, and had, a caretaker. And if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, the band continued to pay him.
Wow.
Because, he was a founding member.
Sure.
And again, he was the primary songwriter up until, I don't remember which album he left the band.
But he had like 6 or 8 albums.
Yeah, he had several albums with them.
Really wrote the vast majority.
Yeah, and a couple of solo albums too.
Oh, shit.
So yeah, he
wasn't hurting.
No, they made sure he was taken care of.
That's cool.
They did.
Now, is he still around or no?
No, he died kind of recently, actually, just the last couple of years.
I'll be damned.
Yeah, which I was surprised. I was like, oh, I thought he was dead already.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not saying that in a disrespectful manner. I just did not realize that he was still around.
We say the same thing about Jerry Lee Lewis.
Right, yeah. Well, when you said that last week, I was like, wait, he's still alive?
Yeah, out of all them bastards, he's the only one living? Jesus
That's
Christ.
Crazy. But so Dark Side of the Moon was kind of a technological marvel for its time. It used many techniques that were still relatively new then, like multi-track recording, tape loops, analog synthesizers, and David Gilmour made heavy usage of watery chorus and phaser effects. And I'd be lying if I said a big part of the reason I own a phaser pedal isn't because of him.
Oh, yeah?
Even though it's not currently on my pedal board over there, he was definitely a big influence on why I started using phaser effects occasionally. The album sold roughly 45 million million copies internationally, spawned 2 official singles, Money and Us and Them, although many other songs are frequently played on classic rock radio despite never having been given official single status. I know 2 that I hear the most commonly are Breathe and Brain Damage. I hear those 2 songs a lot, and I honestly would say at some point I've heard probably every single song on the album on the radio. But yeah, so it became the band's mainstream breakthrough and definitely led to their future success. And I know if I ever have an acoustic guitar in my hand and I'm just noodling around on it, I almost always end up playing bits of Wish You Were Here on that. I love that song. Yeah, so, but this isn't really so much about giving a rundown on the most well-known psychedelic rock band of all time. It's all about the myth, often referred to as I said earlier, Dark Side of the Rainbow. So I mentioned that Indiana played a role in the spreading of this rumor. In 1995, the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette published what seems to be the first mainstream article about the supposed synchronization. So, newspaper, 95.
I'll be damned.
95, yeah. So, Fort Wayne, Indiana, their newspaper publishes this article in which they quote stories from Usenet, which was an early internet bulletin board system,
Right.
And in particular, there was a Pink Floyd-centric discussion group that was talking about this. And that's what they cited in this article. And for those who aren't familiar with Usenet, it was kind of like Reddit long before that was a thing, but even more disjointed, really, even than Reddit. I remember having friends when I was in like 3rd and 4th grade pulling cheat codes from Doom or special moves and fatalities from Mortal Kombat's 1 and 2 off of the bulletin board systems, like that. And I had no clue what the hell they were talking about. I was like, the hell is the internet?
Right,
you know what I'm saying? But
the days that were simpler.
I know, it's crazy. But so this newspaper article actually prompted several fans to create websites dedicated to the myth. And I didn't go looking to see if any of them still exist, but I can only imagine many of them having black backgrounds with an impossible to read colored font, possibly a flashing or glittery banner at the top of the page.
Because
too,
it's easy to read.
Exactly. Brings back memories of the Netscape and Geocities days,
shit.
of the late 90s there. So, but the popularity of this urban legend grew even further in 1997 when a Boston radio DJ named George Taylor Morris spoke about it on the air. And this led to even more articles being written about it. And obviously this time, it's starting to gain more national coverage, whereas before it was a little bit more, centralized to the Midwest there. And even culminated with an MTV news segment about it. Yeah. And I can only imagine Kurt Loder narrating that story. So I'm going to have to look that up, see if I can find.
David Gilmour was like, yes, we're legit. We made the MTV.
So we can go even further down the rabbit hole, if I may mix in a metaphor from another seemingly psychedelic favorite movie, when we learned that Turner Classic Movies aired the movie in July of 2000 with The Dark Side of the Moon as its soundtrack.
What?
So Turner Classic Movies played it with Dark Side of the Moon synced up to it.
Now, do you think that was like serendipity, or do you think that was like in response to?
Oh, no, I very much think it's in response to.
No.
Oh, yeah, I mean, because where else would it have come from?
So they had some pothead in the sound booth that was like, yo, check this out.
So now we have the company, Turner, who has owned the rights to the movie since 1986, all but officially acknowledging that...
Yellow Brick Road? Oh, I mean, The Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
Shut your face. I didn't know that.
Apparently, yeah, I didn't know that until I was researching this. Apparently, Turner owns the rights to The Wizard of Oz, and they have since... Well, it's been over 30 years now.
Rich bastard.
Yeah, 1986.
You gotta get the rights to that movie and Jane Fonda. Go to hell, Ted Turner. Goddamn.
But whenever it's possible, it's always nice to go to the source to confirm or deny the rumor.
Right.
And given the popularity of said rumor, the band members and other people involved with the making of the album have done just that. Unfortunately, for those who have held out hope that the album was painstakingly crafted to serve as the alternate soundtrack, it has been debunked as nothing more than uncanny coincidence by numerous primary sources. In 1998, the 25th anniversary of the album, guitarist David Gilmour shot it down, saying, quote, "Some guy with too much time on his hands had this idea of combining Wizard of Oz with Dark Side of the Moon."
Oh, shit.
Alan Parsons,
Whoa.
yes, that Alan Parsons,
wow,
served as the engineer on the record. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, blew me away. And he, too, debunked the myth. His quote, and this is a long one, says, "It was an American radio guy who pointed it out to me. It's such a non-starter, a complete load of eyewash. I tried it for
eyewash?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't hear that too often.
Yeah.
I tried it for the first time about 2 years ago. One of my fiance's kids had a copy of the video, and I thought I had to see what it was all about. I was very disappointed. The only thing I noticed was that the line, 'balanced on the biggest wave,' came up when Dorothy was kind of tightrope walking along a fence. One of the things any audio professional will tell you is that the scope for the drift between the video and the record is enormous. It could be anything up to 20 seconds by the time the record's finished. And anyway, if you play any record with the sound turned down on the TV, you will find things that work."
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah.
Pink Floyd drummer Nick Mason played it a little more coyly, telling MTV in 1997 that, quote, "It's absolute nonsense. It has nothing to do with The Wizard of Oz. It was all based on The Sound of Music."
Oh, shit. Oh, wow, because Nazis. Yeah.
So, and furthermore, author Richard Roper dismissed it as well in his 2001 book Urban Legends, noting that the band likely could have done such a thing if they truly wanted, but the sheer logistics of doing so are absolutely mind-boggling.
Sure.
And this is how I've always looked at it, too, because, I mean, the album is 42 minutes and 49 seconds long, whereas the movie is 2 hours and 5 minutes.
Right.
So, I mean, it not only has to sync with one playthrough, but almost 3 consecutively.
Oh, God, that's... Shit, if you can do that, go out and buy a lottery ticket.
Exactly. So, I could almost buy it if it was just one playthrough, but 3, I mean, come on, that's crazy.
Yeah, I feel you.
There's no way that, there's enough similarities playing it 3 times in a there's just no way they could have synced that up that well. Right. No way, because you'd have to have repeating motifs throughout the movie that synchronize with the themes on the album.
Right.
No, just no way.
That's rocket surgery.
Exactly. But so this theme has been applied to other movies and albums as well. Coincidentally, several also involve Pink Floyd. Probably some form of confirmation bias there is my guess. Sure. But the one you had mentioned at the beginning, there's a song called Echoes. It's the last song off of their 1971 album Metal, and it's a 23.5-minute long song that supposedly lines up with a segment called Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite from Stanley Kubrick's 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey. So supposedly that syncs up with it, although again, yeah, I doubt it.
Maybe not.
It could, yeah, it could.
Look at you making up another episode to do.
And then there's another one. A comedian named Matt Herzog jokingly claimed that the Pixar film WALL-E syncs up with The Wall by Pink Floyd. Unsurprisingly, he dubbed this another brick in the WALL-E.
What? No, you didn't.
Yeah, and then Alice in Wonderland has also been suggested to sync with not one but two Pink Floyd-related albums, one being The Wall, and the other being a Syd Barrett solo album called Madcap Laughs.
Wait a minute. Didn't we talk about that movie that a lot of... oh, God. He just passed away. He was in... oh, God.
Musician or director or
Musician.
actor?
Had his own band. He was in the Traveling Wilburys.
Tom Petty.
Tom Petty.
Yeah.
that had to do with... that had to do with the Alice in Wonderland thing.
I don't know. I don't remember anything about that.
Oh shit! There was some song that. Hell, I might need drugs. I don't know.
No, I don't remember that. I believe you, but I don't remember anything about that specifically.
What was the one that Last Dance with Mary Jane? And
yeah.
There was another
well, the
one.
music video for that had, it was like Alice in Wonderland, and he was the Mad
but I
Hatter.
think the reason that they did that was because what was the one that was that it wasn't Last Dance with Mary Jane. They had the hot chick that was on that one. I'm talking about the music video that really did Don't Come Around Here No More. That was supposedly based off of Alice in Wonderland. And remember, I said we were talking about one of the episodes, and I said, I was going through some of the different stories of Alice in Wonderland because I was always under the impression that was one story, but it's like a metric shitload of stories.
Right? Yeah, because there's like Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
That was one of them. And then I was like, holy hell, you can write dozens of albums off of these stories.
Yeah. I don't know.
Look at you not remembering shit. We've been
I don't
hanging
remember
around too
that
long.
one at all. Yeah. So then there's a few more albums too. Coheed and Cambria's second album, In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3, supposedly syncs with the first Peter Jackson directed Lord of the Rings movie, The Fellowship of the Ring. And then there are two I found that are confirmed to sync with movies, however, and I've never heard of either of them. One is an album called Ephemeral by Canadian EDM artist Richard, I don't know how to pronounce this last name, Aucoin, Aucoin, maybe, is intended to sync with the 1979 claymation short film The Little Prince, which is an adaptation of a novella by the same name. And then a French avant-garde jazz band known as Ghost Rhythms, again, never heard of them, released an album called Madeline that syncs with Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo.
Really?
Yeah, and that's Madeline is the name of Kim Novak's character. Or no, sorry, the character who Kim Novak impersonates, rather, at the beginning of the movie. So that was interesting. But yeah, that's.
Have you heard the EDM version of Pure Imagination from Willy Wonka?
No, I haven't.
Speaking of songs that line up with movies,
That's
it doesn't
funny.
line up with movies necessarily, but this chick takes those words that he said, like the song, Pure Imagination, and EDMs the shit out of it.
I'll have to check that out.
And I tell you what, I honestly thought, rare is the time in my life that I think, you know what? I think I need some kind of therapy or heavy medication or something, like I know I don't think like other people. I get that. Okay. I know that most people are smarter than me. I get that. But whenever I hear a song and I go, holy shit, like it's EDM. That's new.
Right.
I'm old. I don't know new stuff. And I'm thinking, wow, that sounds an awful lot like Willy Wonka. Of course it's not Willy Wonka. That's just crazy talk. And then come to find out that's what it is. Holy
gotcha.
cow.
Nice.
It's not lining up. That's the words.
Right.
I'll
I'll have to check that out. So it's just different music with his singing.
No, well, it's not like a sample of him. It's this chick that's singing his words. Pure Imagination.
She's okay. So she's singing. I gotcha.
And I'd really like to say that it's good, but I think I might be a little unconsciously biased because I like the movie.
Oh, yeah, right,
and
right,
the song,
right, right.
But it very well could possibly be good to somebody with taste. I don't know.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. Check it out. That's interesting. That's all I've got for this one.
Right on. One thing I wanted to add is I don't know if I told you about this or not. I wanted to hip you all onto a pretty good podcast. And, one thing that I really try to tell people, I don't really say it on air that much, but if any, but, you might like our podcast, you might not like our podcast, but one thing I could genuinely tell you is we are for real. We don't we don't have no fake shit.
No.
I mean, you could obviously tell that I have no talent. We have zero fake shit. We are genuinely have a conversation. The only thing different in our conversations from the podcast is that we don't record our conversations.
Right.
But this is exactly what it sounds like whenever we're just talking. But one thing that me personally, I don't care about making money. I just want to be genuine. If it comes out of my face, I just want you to know that that's the real deal.
Right.
And it might not be the most flattering thing, but at least you know it's the truth.
Yeah.
But whenever I come across something cool, I want to hip y'all onto it. And one of them was a podcast I listened to quite a few days ago, and it's called Disgraced Land. Did I tell you?
Oh,
about
no, I haven't heard about this.
Look, I talked to this dude a while back.
Yeah.
And now I'll tell you right off the bat, we don't know this guy, obviously, because, John just said it.
Yeah.
But we don't know this guy. We're not getting paid to promote his podcast. I just want to hip you on some good stuff, and this is it. He tells the kind of stories that we talk about, but just in a different way.
Huh.
Like if we were really good broadcasters and we had high production and multiple people that were doing it, because you ever heard like an NPR?
Oh, yeah.
Like they'll say, and the sound production was this guy.
Right.
And, in our podcast, all I could say is, Randy talked half the time and John does everything else. Well, this guy, he has like 3 or 4 different people that are doing that, and he's really good.
Gotcha.
But it's really worth the 30 minutes it takes to listen to him. His name is Jake Brennan. And I listened to he had an introductory broadcast, which I so wish we would have thought of that, to have an introductory broadcast. But his introductory podcast was, hey, my name is Jake Brennan, and, have you ever heard the story about whatever, but talking about the same kind of stories that we talk about.
Okay.
And, or have you ever heard this story? Blah, blah. Well, those are some of the things that I talk about on Disgraced Land. Well, he just had his first episode, and it just dropped like a couple of days before ours. You know what it was?
What?
Jerry Lee Lewis, crazy, all that crazy shit he did. And one of the things that he kind of briefed, just kind of blew over was whenever he showed up in front of Graceland with a gun.
Really?
And I was like, son of a bitch. If John would have dropped that 2 days earlier, we would have beat the guy to the punch, But yeah, like I think he dropped it like on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and I think you dropped ours on like a Thursday
morning. Yeah.
And I was like, this is embarrassing. Oh shit. But as far as Jake and I know, we're the only ones that do what we do.
Okay.
Yeah. And his is really good. It's just him telling a story. It's good. It's high production. And, whenever I talk, there's a lot of ums, and, no word ever comes out of my mouth is more than 5 letters. and he's got a lot of 50-cent words and stuff, but he's really good at what he does. It's a good podcast, and, I would highly recommend that y'all listen to it.
I'll check that out this week.
So last thing I want to say is I want to give a shout out to my friend Adrian in Norfolk. I've been talking to her about podcast stuff here lately, and she's kind of a badass. She just got hired on by NPR to do freelance stuff.
Oh, cool.
And she's also starting her own podcast, and I promised her I'm not going to say anything about it. I'll tell you about it whenever we get off. But,
okay.
But yeah, she's genuine badass. But anyway, we've been talking about podcasts here lately, so I just wanted to say, hey, girl. So anyway, that's all I got. That's all I got to say about that. So you got anything else, brother?
No, sir. That's it.
All right. Well, music history doesn't stop just because our podcast ends.
If you ever hear any music myths or legends you'd like to hear us talk about on the show, you can reach out to us on social media, on Facebook at Tall Tales Music Mythology, Twitter at T2M2 Podcast, or you can email us at hosts, HOSTS, at T2M2.org.
And the hate mail is that email. Hey, John, this is what I think of the stupid opinions you have. And if you want to know more about the Smarts Project and what we can do for your high school music programs, join us at our home on the web at thesmartsproject.com. And our complaint department is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at randy@thesmartsproject.com. Now more than ever, be kind to each other. Tell your kids you love them while you got them, and whatever you do in life, never be a myth.
Always be a legend.
Love you. Bye.
Bye. Hey everybody, John here. If you'd like to hear me rant about other topics besides just music, check out the Gluff Nation podcast, where my brother and I tackle topics from politics, pop culture, and tech trends. Find us on YouTube, and we'll be bringing our rambling diatribes to iTunes and everywhere else podcasts are available soon. Thanks for listening.